special guest,
Cole Crosby.
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Power Motion Picnic Hour. As always, I'm your host, Dave, and as always, with me is
Trevor.
Hey, Trevor, what's happening?
I'm doing well. I'm back to the old signature introduction, I guess.
Yeah, this is a throwback episode in a sense.
Before that 1 week when I had a cooler intro.
We're going back to our Hemingway style minimalist use of language.
Yes, yeah. Quite fashionable back in the day.
Fashionable in the 1920s and fashionable in the 2020s as well.
Yep, absolutely. I'm glad to see you still have your Wings shirt on.
Yeah. Do I wear this every episode? My Paul McCartney and Wings T-shirt that I bought in Liverpool.
I imagine you've just had it on continuously, but I guess it would make more sense that you might have changed in between episodes.
I'm sure I have, and I have tons of T-shirts, but I only wear like 3 of them.
That's always kind of been your thing. I feel like in the original 1.0 days, you spent more than half your time probably in a King Cobra with cut off sleeves. Black sort of sleeveless tee.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't cut off sleeves. It was made without sleeves.
Oh, was it really made that way?
Yeah, and that was a gift. That was a gift from an old college buddy who gave it to me as a gift when I got my first tattoo, because he thought I needed a shirt that would show off the tattoo on my upper arm. And he had the shirt. It was a gift from his father who had given it to him just because he did. Yeah, because he thought it was cool, I guess. But his father got it in like the 70s from like a package store when he was buying like a box of King Cobras. I don't know why he was buying so many King Cobras, just stocking up for the winter, I suppose. And there was a promotion, which was a King Cobra muscle shirt.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which I wore till it basically disintegrated.
It's a great first shirts we used to wear segment.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about that old school T-shirt that I just remembered.
History of some shirts we used to have. Yeah. You also had like a cool. I don't know why I remember your shirt so well. Probably because we spent so much time together and you only wore like
2 or 3 shirts. Yeah. They've made an impression.
But there was some like heart, and I think it was a bar in Berlin or something.
That was that one I still have, although it is like disintegrated. But yeah, that was from a bar called Wild at Heart, I think, which still is open, I think, in Kreuzberg in Berlin, which is like a punk rock bar and venue. And I bought that when I was in Berlin for the first time about 20 years ago, about a month or two shy of 20 years ago. So yeah.
Wild at Heart. Also a Lou Reed album?
Legendary Hearts, I think. Right.
Yeah, thanks. I sort of saw a fact correction coming, but thankfully we caught it, nipped it in the bud live.
Feel free to chime into the mailbag on Lou Reed related topics anyway.
Yeah, Wild at Heart. Well, anyway, good shirt, good phrase, sort of very fitting of the pod and perhaps even of this episode's special guest, who just did something fairly wild by most accounts.
Great job reining this out of control intro in and finding a way to make it about running. But that's true. We had a great special guest this week, as you could hear in the identify yourself segment of the theme music, and we had a great talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess before we go right into that, we have sort of a few things that spilled over from last episode. So we have a little bit of mailbag. We can probably do the standard week in running recap, but I don't know. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's go to the interview and then we'll come back. We'll do mailbag. We'll do week in running, and if we feel like it, we'll invent a new segment on the fly.
That sounds good.
All right, let's hit it. This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour.
My name's Cole Crosby, and I wear many hats, and I like to run real far too. So that's why I'm on the pod too.
Awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, you caught our attention with your recent base circuit FKT attempt, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah. So tell us a little bit about the type of running you like to do.
Yeah. So I have now kind of in the last couple of years kind of caught the bug of these like multi-day ultra marathon running. So literally I'm kind of I ran a race just to put into context. I ran a 100-mile race in Canada in Quebec City area. And throughout the whole race, like especially even when I finished, they had on the announcement, they called me the Forrest Gump of New Jersey because I was born and raised in New Jersey. And they have really cool like French Canadian accents and too. So there's no way I'm gonna go and be able to do the race director justice. But
do they call all ultra marathoners Forrest Gump? Is that a Canadian
no,
thing?
definitely not.
Wasn't sure if that was a weird Canadian eccentricity. I'm turning it back on them with
I know.
their Jersey slurs.
I know. It would have been cool if they called everybody that, but I don't know where they got it from, but that's where they kind of came up with that. But in many ways, I guess I do these ultra marathon events that whether it's an actual race or more like a FKT or unsanctioned type of race where I run for multiple days on end, day in, nighttime, and ultimately have an awesome crew that helps support me to get to whatever that finish line might be. So whether it's 150 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles, done 346 miles is the furthest I've ever gone.
Oh my God.
So ultimately, I look at it it's just a number, whatever it is, I'm going to get to it. So
yeah. We've had, it's funny, we've had a few ultra runners on the podcast, but I didn't know until we started this podcast that there were races over 100 miles. I know now, I know well.
Yeah. It's kind of this like it's a growing phenomenon, I think. I think in the past people are just like doing it, right? Like when you run across the country or like run across the state or do some of these like almost like running challenges kind of. But now we're seeing more of a influx of actual like race directors putting on actual races that are crazy distances. I mean, there's even a race that goes across New York State that's a 409-mile race or something like that.
Oh my God.
I mean,
I love it.
We'll have this, we'll revisit this conversation 5 years from now and we'll be like, oh yeah, the 400 is the new 100.
Yeah, exactly. Cole Crosby, old time short distance Forrest Gump, New Jersey style runner. Yeah. Who knows, right? I mean, like, I don't know. So wait, how long is the New York one? 400?
I think it's 409 miles, but give or take a little bit, but
I love that.
Fool's 409.
What is it?
The Fool's 409.
The Fool's 409 for listeners at home who might want to do it.
Yeah. So Dave's right. We've had sort of a number of special guests that kind of get up into the 100 plus, but definitely not sort of into the realm you're talking. But the first guest we had was the popular runner Jim Pergolesi, and we were talking to him a little bit about like sleeping strategy. Do you have a certain like do you do what's your strategy, and does it change depending on the event or how do you kind of approach that aspect?
Yeah, it does change on the event. I've learned that more sleep is better for me. So the first 200-mile race that I ever ran was called the Cocodona 250 through Arizona. I had a sleep strategy, but I didn't really do a good job of executing it. So I took a lot of like short 20-minute naps. And ultimately by mile 200, I was like, I don't know, I didn't realize, I had no idea where I was pretty much. I was like having an out of body experience where I thought that I could like see myself from up above. And like, it was almost like I was watching like a playback of my race. And I thought I had finished the race, but I was really running it. So,
wow.
Not to get in the weeds on that one, but I mean, that was one pivotal experience where I was like, well, crap, I need to try and sleep more. And then I did the speed project, which was, I finished that event. That was the 346 miles from LA to Vegas. And I finished that one. sleeping. Really, I slept about anywhere between an hour and a half every 12 hours.
Wow.
Okay.
And I felt great. I had perfect mental clarity. It really came down to the very end where I kind of try to push to the finish. Because at one point I was vying for the lead with like a marathon to go. And I didn't know if I was going to get it. Ultimately, I think I finished like fourth overall, but mind you, I also ran like 60 miles more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Uh,
I,
so
I like that
yeah,
hour and a half every 12 approach. That almost sounds like something that like people do if they're going on some sort of bender, organized bender.
yeah,
Like if you're
yeah,
going to like, if you're going to like South by Southwest or some kind of event where you're not really sleeping much for a bunch of days, but you're squeezing in 90 minutes here and there.
yeah,
I guess it applies to running too.
yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's been working out great. Like, and one of the things that I've been able to do is like, I've become a real believer of really like having it, almost making a crew like a NASCAR. So all of
Hmm.
my like aid station pit stops, if you want to call them that, my crew is timing me. So I'm on a shot clock. So if we budget a minute to 3 minutes, like they'll tell me like 1 minute, 2 minute, like 1 minute warning, like it's almost
Wow.
3 minutes, you gotta go. And so when you get it so dialed like that, the benefit of that is that I'm not wasting any time in those aid stations. So when I sleep, like I'm not like I'm pretty much making up all that time, right? So like the time that normally would just be wasted like just chit-chatting and like not doing anything gets funneled into the sleep bucket. And so like that sleeping time is purposeful. It's not nothing's wasted.
Hmm.
And that's where I've been able to really like optimize like how I run and perform. And yeah, the Bay Circuit Trail is a good example of being able to do that. I did change my sleeping strategy slightly. I did because of the distance. I did 1 hour or 1.5 hours every 24 hours roughly. So I slept twice in this run,
Whoa.
and that worked out really well.
It worked. That's cool.
And so the base circuit, you did the whole thing. You beat your goal. Was it less than 3 days? Is what you're shooting for? Or tell us a little bit about sort of like
Yeah,
what your goal was and how you did against it.
yeah. So something I learned. So the very first time I ever ran like beyond 100 miles was when I ran across New Jersey. That's my home state. I did that kind of during COVID. I did it in January 2021. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't like we just flew by the seat of our pants. Like I had never finished in a 100-mile race before, so beyond 88 miles, it was all new territory, right? So
Mhm.
sleeping, I just like winged it, and then yeah, pretty much like I you
Did you
know
go did you go north to south or south to north?
north to south.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me, but that's because I'm in New York, so
Yeah,
it just
we're in New
feels
York.
I'm in Manhattan in the West Village.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'd have to run through a tunnel or something, but then I'd get going. But that okay. Are you from the north part of Jersey?
No, I'm from the dead center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm uh I'm in probably the least appealing. Well, no, Princeton's a great town, but like there's like one stretch where you go across like pretty much like Route 1, which is a pretty extensive major highway. It
Yeah.
was like super sketchy through there. Is like where all the shopping and stuff was, and I unfortunately I caught it like during rush hour.
Oh
Uh
God.
was not good. But yeah, so what now we're off. I had to get off the New Jersey tangent. So what was I trying to say? What was that main question?
I
Let's
don't.
see, where were we? We were talking about we were starting to talk a little bit about base circuit,
Well, we were doing the 100-mile run across Jersey, I thought,
100-mile run across Jersey.
right?
You were saying that was your first, and then you hit mile 88 and
That's right.
sort of entered some new territory, didn't have much of a strategy for sleep, and were kind of figuring it out as you were going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's just like anything, like I think you just build from there, right? So like so from New Jersey, I didn't know what I was doing. Then I ran Cocodona. My feet were a complete catastrophe. I wasted way too much time there. And then the speed project, I took all the learnings from like how to pre-tape your feet and do all these things, nutrition and so on. And we knocked it out of the park. And then Bay Circuit Trail comes along. 200, for me, I finished in 227 miles in 53 hours, 51 minutes and 14 seconds. And we're talking about the time, like what was my goal time? So
Yeah.
ultimately, yeah. So this is where I was trying to get at. So New Jersey taught me, there are some newspapers that like caught wind of the story and like published it like literally like 3 hours before I was supposed to run at 2 a.m. So my phone was blowing up. And they were like, can this guy break 40 hours? I finished in 44. And it was like, then they did a recap and they were like bashing me for like being like, well, he did it, but he didn't hit his time. So I've learned to, and I got burned for it a little bit, but I learned to kind of, you know, under promise, over deliver. So I said 72. And again, I had really not spent enough time on the trail to really like, I had a gauge of it, but not like a perfect gauge. And so anything can happen, especially in these longer distances. But I definitely with me internally, like I was going for it. And so, whether it was, like I felt like anything under 60 hours is going to be a really strong performance. If you look at most like 200-mile finishes in like like Bigfoot 200, the Tahoe 200, the Moab 240, if you can finish for the 200-mile races, if you can finish in like the 50 to 60-hour range, you're probably winning the race. And so I wanted to kind of be like, oh, I'm running a little bit further. And New England's technical. These West Coasters don't understand it.
That's what I'm always saying. Yeah.
And yeah, so I kind of like, had to hope that I could put together a good performance, and definitely did.
Nice. I like how running the East has a kind of ski the East vibe, where
It
like
does.
it's right. It's not as like idyllic in some ways, but yeah, it requires a certain technical skill to get through it.
It
Oh,
does.
definitely. Yeah, I think we have some roots and connections to New Hampshire and the running scene up in the White Mountains, and a lot of the runners are always talking about, it's much harder to pull off longer distance races. There's not, I think it's something to do with the Park Service and just sort of the availability to host those types of events in the national forest. And but like imagine Western States runners that are used to just like cruising along like gravel and dirt, doing some of the stuff up there. It's a completely different thing almost.
Yeah.
So Bay Circuit. So and so I think we saw I don't know, it must have been from like the FKT or something on Instagram sort of alerted me to your effort. And I came out with we call them the two young Power Motion Picnic Hour apprentices, and
But we can't do this forever. Yeah, we're like Willy Wonka. Eventually, we're gonna have to hand it over to a younger generation.
We'll have to pass the baton, but we saw you. The timing worked out perfectly because you came through our town, and we're at Tippling Rock, which is a trailhead that I run off of, all the time, and it just worked out. I think you were there at like 8 a.m. We had gotten up and done breakfast, and I threw him in the car. I'm like, let's go, root on Cole. And I have to say, you had at that point you had been running, I think, over 24 hours. You had just run overnight. You had just done a pretty technical section up over Knobscot Hill and the whole sort of Knobscot Reservation. And but you looked like you were just perfectly fine. You were just smiling and taking pictures. We handed you a Bobo's, and it was just a blast. Your crew was incredible. It just seemed like you were just having like the best time.
I try to. I mean, I think I wouldn't be willing to do these things if I wasn't having fun, right? Like if I was just miserable the whole time, like why would I do that,
Yeah,
I guess that's a good point.
It's a long time to be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, there's always moments, obviously. Like I think after that point, once I got through Concord and then got onto before Lowell, like on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, my feet were so sore and so beat up. There's some good pictures at like Mass Ultra that he put up, and it's like me wincing in pain because I had knots on my feet, and we're like trying to like my crew, kudos Brittany, she was a saint for she uh doesn't normally massage people's feet, but she was definitely, it made a huge difference because she got the knots out. So
Nice.
my feet were not like wincing and throbbing in pain, which new things happen all the time. Like this Bay Circuit Trail, I don't think I've ever run an ultra where my feet were like throbbing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just is a testament to like how technical the terrain can be. Like
Mm-hmm.
like it's not, as you said, it's not what the White Mountains, which I've run in the White Mountains. That stuff is just gnarly is the perfect word. It's like
Mm-hmm.
rock gardens that like go up for like 3 miles straight, and then the same way when you descend off of like some of those 4,000 foot peaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that, but it's like a lower elevation version of that and through a lot of parts, especially the time of year too, with all the leaves kind of around and stuff. Like it was a
Mm-hmm.
good challenge. I mean, the conditions were not fast conditions, like it was wet, it was foggy the first night. I could hardly even see where we're going half the time.
Oh man.
um it was slick. We had sleet on like the morning of the when I started. It was sleeting and stuff through the swamps and everything. So you know knock on wood, I was really proud that I had one like close slip where I could have like fell, but like I never fell and like hit the ground one time throughout that whole FKT. So
Wow.
um and that was my goal too, is like even if I go a little bit slower in certain sections, it's about self-preservation. Like in a 200-mile run especially, all it takes is one misstep and you're done.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
If you're hobbling at like 50 minutes a mile and you're only 100 miles in, the likelihood of you actually finishing the thing is probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
So when you saw me, it's like, I was probably like 120 or 30 miles in or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I still have a long way to go. I mean, I still have about, I think actually when I saw you, I had like 90 something odd miles left to go. And so it's like I still have 90 miles to go, which is, and it's still a long distance.
That's a very long distance.
Yeah,
90 plus. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but it's also, I think, for me, it's like if I can get through the first day and the first night, and like I was feeling pretty good, like things that normally could go wrong were not going wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
I even felt it on the first day. I was like, this is gonna be a magical FKT. I feel really good. And I don't think that things are really gonna get like panic mode.
Yeah.
And nothing really got into panic mode. I had a few moments where mentally, like there were some things that were some struggles and whatnot, but that's what ultra running is all about.
Oh,
It's like it's surfing. You ride the highs, you survive the lows. You troubleshoot, you problem solve. Obviously it helps having a great crew that can kind of take some of that workload off your mind,
Mm-hmm.
so you can focus more on just like figuring out like what things you need to do to make yourself the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it's too far to like not go with the flow to some degree, right? You just have to kind of, like you said, you put yourself up, you set yourself up to succeed. The crew's helping you. You've optimized everything, but then you just got to go with it, right?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
and enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm just impressed you stayed upright, because I will frequently take all out falls on that terrain, especially this time of year with the leaves, on my like 1 hour, 5 or 6 mile run.
I feel like we hear
And I'm just
updates
like, yeah, I'm just
about you
down.
doing that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, a root that was covered up, or a little rock. Like it's always those little stubby things. And when the leaf cover's there, it's just, so anyway, well, very well done.
That's true. But the
Uh,
flip side, Trevor, is that when you run during a race, and if you fall, then you're prepared because you fall all the time while
I
running.
fall all the
Yeah.
time.
So it's all
Well practiced.
yeah, exactly. This is what I'm best at. This is my bread and butter.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, you mentioned you like to do races and also FKTs. And I know, I don't know, I'm sure you follow, or at least aware of like, the name Jack Kensel. He
Oh yeah.
does, yeah, he has like again, up in sort of the whites. I mean, he goes all over the place. I think he did the Mount Rainier, like up and down FKT recently, but he holds like Presidential Traverse and a bunch of these iconic routes. And he almost exclusively does the FKTs, and like very sort of, if you've ever heard him on different podcasts or interviews, he's like very strict about sort of tries to do it in the style that it's set, and goes and does preparation for weeks and scouts it, and then it's all about finding the right day and the conditions and everything to line up. And a race, it's like it's a point in time. It's you're there. That's when you're doing it. What's your preference between the two, or do you like, how do you think about those two?
Yeah, well, so I have to preface this. It's funny you mentioned Jack, because I ran in the last race that he ran in, which was the Hellgate. It says 100K, but it's really 66.6 miles.
Okay.
It's in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, and he did finish ahead of me. So he was second place, I was third place, just by like, I think I was behind him by like a minute or two, but long story short, he was way up in front, and that race has crazy weather conditions. That year we had an ice storm, and it was just like I dislocated my pinky slipping on the ice and stuff. It was treacherous. And funny enough, lo and behold, I came up behind him with like a mile to go, and I was like, "Hey man, what's up?" And actually, I had seen him before too, like early on and I had passed him, and then he passed me back, and then at the last aid station, and then coming down the mountain, I was closing in on him, and he stared at me, and he had like the look of like death in his eyes, and he was like starts sprinting, and then I start sprinting, and it was just like it was funny. But I think after that whole thing kind of broke him a little bit. And so that now he's an FKT monster. But
Yeah.
I think for me, like I love races in the sense that I like the event standpoint of it. I like the organized aspect of it, like how it brings the community in. It's kind of a spectacle. That whole side of it. And FKT is much more kind of like a personal adventure and experience. And I guess in some ways it can be more of a purist kind of form. So that's something I think I try to do a little bit differently with my FKTs, especially the Bay Circuit Trail, is like my goal is like, how can I make this more of a participant sport? How can I draw more people in that may not be runners?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I go after something that can make the community feel like they're a part of something, even though I'm kind of the one that's running it, right? So to preface that, initially, what motivated me to do the Bay Circuit Trail this year was, I'd done the speed project from LA to Vegas in March, and they were doing this race in South America through the Atacama Desert. And I initially signed up for it, and I was like, yeah, we're going to go to South America. It's going to be amazing and all this stuff. And it's those events are unsanctioned, very self-supported, all this stuff. You really have to have a dialed crew to do it and do it well. And it was like even more remote than the LA to Vegas one. And I just didn't, to get the right amount of crew, like it was going to be a pretty lavish trip. It's going to cost us like $12,000 to do it the right way. And I thought about it and was like, well, money aside, like I'm just doing this for myself. And I'm like, why should I just pay $12,000 to have a lavish vacation with friends when we can do that any other time,
Mm-hmm.
and go somewhere, maybe somewhere even cooler. So instead, I'd rather just kind of, I'm a fairly new New England resident. I've been living in Rhode Island this is my third year. And I thought, well, I was planning on the Bay Circuit Trail maybe 2024, but maybe we end up pivoting and going all in on this for the fall of this year. And a few conversations with my wife and kind of our chaos crewing business partners and what have you, and it just seemed like it made more sense, trying to fundraise and kind of like build something that hopefully like really all of us as New Englanders and as runners can be proud of, versus me just doing something that sounds cool. It's like a bar story. Yeah, I ran across the Atacama Desert, which is cool, but it's like, how much of an impact does that really make?
Yeah. That sounds cool. I read an article about the Atacama Desert once actually, and it's it sounds like a pretty wild place. But yeah, it's beyond the bar story. There's no reason, right?
When you're hanging around like the minor ski areas of Greater Boston, the Bay Circuit might hold even more weight.
That's true, because people who
yeah,
haven't read the article I read about the Atacama Desert wouldn't even know what it is.
they wouldn't even know. But
And I barely know.
I mean, Bay Circuit is I think it's a very cool thing to do, just in a continuous effort, because it's like it's like trail sections that are linked. Are the roads actually, like, is there a designated road that links each of the trail sections? Yeah. So it's like
there's only two stretches where it's kind of like it's creative. So either you go Bridgewater, or like I think it's like Bridgewater into West Bridgewater, is kind of like find your own fastest route. So I used Matt Dibb, who was the record holder before. I used his route. I did have to detour because there was a bridge that's out, that has access to the trail. So I had to like kind of like do like a big loop around and then connect back in. But that section, and then also Lowell is like one of the spots where the trail kind of like almost like dead ends. And then it's like you have to find your way through Lowell to get to the next trail access point. And that's really it. I mean, it's pretty, I mean, there's markers even on like the like power lines, and like, I mean, it's pretty well marked, and it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, that's something that I think is really unique about this trail, is instead of just following like blue blazes or like white blazes on like a tree and stuff, like you actually have like little circular, like base circuit markers. And funny enough, they're pretty consistent. Obviously when you get through some of the more like, the trail does connect, it connects 37 communities or towns. And so there's points where like you're following the markers like through a town for like a mile or two, and then you connect into it, you turn right, and then you're like on like a, say like a service road or something, or a farm road or whatever, and then that connects into a trailhead. So it's kind of funny. It was like, funny enough, like the road sections were probably some of the scariest parts in terms of like navigation. Like I'm just staring at my phone, like making sure like I'm staying on course, because there's so much other stuff going on. It's very easy to like kind of like forget what you're doing. Whereas in the trail, you're kind of like more hyper focused, and you're kind of like looking for those markers, and you can kind of see them, throughout the woods, especially this time of year where there's not a lot of leaf coverage up in the trees. So you can kind of spot them with your headlamp and all that stuff. But it's really cool. I don't really know many trails that are like it, especially one that has the accessibility that this presents. And then also just like, I mean, the fact that it is one continuous trail, but it like links into other trail networks too within these natural areas, which is like, it's kind of like the Central Park it's like the longer trail version of Central Park for us here around Boston, which is cool.
Now you're talking my language. I like hearing how it's marked so clearly, actually, because I'm pretty good at like losing the trail. Like even if I'm just hiking, I'll just lose whatever blazes I'm following, and then all of a sudden I'll look up and I'm like, wait, what color is that? That's a color I didn't know I've seen all day.
Yeah, I mean, mind you, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty easy to miss it. You have to pay attention, but like
that might be my problem.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Just one last thing on Bay Circuit, is just for perspective for some of the listeners. What was the previous best? So you did it in 53 hours, and
just under 54, 53, 51. Matt Dibb completed in 92, I think.
Wow. Okay, so you took a healthy nearly 2 days off the record.
I think it was like 38 hours is what it came out to be.
Wow.
Well, ultimately though, it's a different style. Matt, when he did it, he ran it like a stage race kind of. So like he'd run during the day and like stay in a hotel or like at a friend's house, and then like run from where he left off. But at the same time, like, I mean, I approximated when I tried to do the math and try to figure it out, it's approximately, I was like, okay, he ran in like somewhere in the 70-hour range, 70 under 80.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like, let's see how far I can get under that. Right.
Yeah. If I took a break halfway through a race like that to sleep in a bed, I would then just sleep in the bed for 9 days straight. Like I'd be like, I got to get back up and do the race. They're like, no, the race is long over, Dave. Go back to bed.
Yeah, that's like one of our special guests ran one of those backyard ultra style events. Yeah, I think, yeah, whatever it was, you had to do a loop or something every hour, and sort of getting towards the end, wasn't aware of whether there were even any more racers still like participating with him, because the guy that was like sort of running along with him had gone into his trailer like during one of the breaks, and then just like never came out. It turned out.
Yeah, that's a real risk, right? That can
Yeah,
definitely happen.
certainly for me. Yeah.
Cole, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. We're running a bit low on time, but before we wrapped up, I wanted to find out, what do you do for that many hours in a row to occupy your mind? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you listen to nature? What do you do?
I have, I mean, I have listened to podcasts before, but really just to like kind of like drown out the noise and stuff. Like I did that during the speed project towards the end, just to kind of like really, I only did it just, I would be like, okay, this podcast is an hour and a half long. And so once at the conclusion of it, it meant that I got an hour and a half, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I just had it as ambient noise in the background. I guess I'm a purist in that sense. I try to, I guess, listen to Mother Nature. I try to just like I mean, I think that's something that I've worked on a lot over the years, is really like using my mind as a tool, you know. And so I'm very good at blocking things out, but also like being very like in tune and engaged with like what's going on around me.
Hmm.
uh, so I just really focus on like how am I feeling, what's, you know, making sure I'm staying upright, not hitting rocks, and like making sure I'm
Mm-hmm.
navigating the terrain properly, make sure I'm, you know, staying on course and doing all those things. So it's I'm constantly doing like a going through a checklist in my mind in terms of like making sure that I'm putting the best effort I can. And also not like really I'm also kind of almost like meditating in a way. I try to keep my mind very like powerful but also relaxed too.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a muscle too in these longer efforts. So you know, the more that I can kind of move efficiently, it's also like having good running form. If my mind can really be kind of in a good headspace, it means that I'm going to be more alert and be able to you know, be able to push harder when I need to, even when I'm tired. So just like a muscle, your mind is just that. So it can easily be overworked, and so I try to rest it as much as I can.
That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, I've never run anywhere close to your distances, but not never longer than a marathon distance. But I love running without a distraction like that, I suppose, right? As some sort of form of natural meditation, maybe. And you do seem to have optimized it and mastered it, which is pretty damn cool. But it definitely just as a practice, it's something I enjoy as well. So
Cool.
that's
Yeah.
awesome to hear. I think that's less common these days, actually, right? I think because I like asking the question about what people listen to, because you get a lot of interesting answers, and we talk about running to music a lot too, which is also very fun. But yeah, that's a rare answer, I think, right? Somebody who doesn't have anything blasting in their ears.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and same. I'm sort of building up towards longer distances, but I think one of the things that I'm always chasing is getting to that place where you're just like the focus is just on the next step, right? And it's just on like keeping moving, and it's yeah, it's definitely meditative. I think I started it in the middle of pandemic just as a way. It was like the furthest I could get away from like the world of Zoom and everything. It was just like, okay, this is like the anti-Zoom world where it's just all about moving and feeling your body. And I think a number of our guests have sort of mentioned similar things. I think that's a big like sort of thread and just in running in general, whatever type of running you're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we are running, just about running out of time. So I guess if we have any final thoughts or
Any final
parting messages
thoughts?
for the world or our dedicated
Next
listener base,
projects?
yeah,
Any
let's.
next projects coming up?
Now's
Or
the time.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want
What's next for you, Cole? How's that?
so what I always tell people is that because you always get that question. So I try to always have something one thing on my calendar, just so that I have an answer, right? Rather than being like, oh, I don't know.
Ah.
So I signed up for a race in Arizona called the Black Canyon 100K. And
Yep.
to make things fun, I'm doing the 100-mile challenge, meaning that I'm running 100K on Saturday, and then the next morning I'm running the 60K. So I'm doing roughly 100 miles of racing out in just north of Phoenix in Black Canyon City area. So that'll be fun. It's a gold
Awesome.
take a
Very
race for
cool.
the Western states. So I'm trying to represent the East Coast and see what happens and roll the dice and hope for the best. I'm also like an Aravaipa New England athlete, so I'm part of that like
Awesome.
Aravaipa racing team, which has done a good job of like live streams and whatnot. They also like did a little bit of like a live broadcast of the Bay Circuit Trail. It's on
Hmm.
Mountain Outpost channel, so check that out, people. Uh,
Awesome.
you'll get like daily recaps and the finish line interviews and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm doing that, and then I haven't signed up for it yet, but I'm intending on in September to do something called the Cowboy 200. It's a rail trail across Nebraska, and it's I just want to absolutely crush a 200-mile time. So yeah, so like how people are trying to run as fast as they can for 100 miles, I'm trying to do that for 200 on a trail surface. So
That's awesome.
Wow.
I'm not going to name any numbers, but I did run 200 roughly 200 miles across New Jersey in 44 hours. So let's just say, and let's hope faster.
Yeah, let's see what you can do
Nice.
on a mind-blowingly flat state like Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we will be rooting you on, and I'm sure the community, the listening community will as well. And yeah, just thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And this has been really awesome. I feel like we learned a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. My last parting words is, if you have aspirations to do something like this, it starts at one step, and one step times a million steps is what it takes to get to the finish line. And that's literally what I've been doing since I was a young kid. And honestly, like consistency is the secret key to success. So just keep up the hard work, and before you know it, you'll be running, you'll be achieving your goals, whether it's running really far or maybe being a world-class shuttle player, who knows?
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour. Thanks again to Cole for coming on and being our special guest this week. That was an awesome talk.
Thank you so much, Cole. That was really great. Good luck with everything that comes next, and just congrats on all the achievements. And thanks so much for being special guest.
Yeah, great to have you. All right, well, I guess that leaves us back here with the normal weekly business.
The normal unstructured content that we sort of put a facade over by making up segment names for.
Let's go to a tried and true segment maybe. How about week in running?
Week in running, yeah. How was your week in running?
Well, finally, I had a great week in running. I think I've gone running 5 times since the last time we spoke.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, last week I was traveling for work and I got 3 pretty solid 4 or 5 mile treadmill runs at the hotel where I was staying.
Nice.
And then since getting back to New York, I've done two 10Ks up along my beloved Hudson River. One just a few hours ago or at lunchtime today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
How about you?
it's a great week in running. Yeah, I've gotten a few in. I still haven't been quite as frequent or consistent as I would like, but I got two last week. One that felt fairly solid, at least for where I am right now. Sort of trying to build it back, and then one today.
Nice.
And I actually ran along a portion of the Bay Circuit Trail, which is
Nice.
where I often run. Yeah.
Okay, we're back. We're running.
We're running again.
Yeah, the running podcast is back on track and
Yeah,
and tread.
the running podcasters now also running again. And yeah, and I think it's sort of, for me, it's going to be like the start of a little mini training block for the upcoming race that is likely just only going to be coach friend, myself, possibly you, though unlikely, and other friend yet to be named, sort of pending his listening of the Power Motion Picnic Hour. But so it's probably a 3-person race, but It has a name. It's the Krampus Classic, and it's going to be a loop around Knobscot that you have to sort of alternate clockwise, counterclockwise, because I think one direction's a little longer perhaps than the other.
Okay.
Most
I like how
loops,
confused I already am by the description of the race.
the funny thing is I'm trying to sort of simplify the convoluted set of ideas that are becoming the rules and parameters
Nice.
as I say this, but call it like it's maybe a 1.5 mile loop in either direction. Just one is a little bit more uphill and a little bit more challenging, and you have to, rather than just run the loop continuously, you have to run back to the starting line and then turn around and go in the other direction. So it throws in a little element of perhaps some amount of confusion as runners start, sort of racers start crossing paths, and nobody quite knows how many laps, and it goes for 4 hours, and it's the total number of loops that you can do.
It feels like it has a potential to bring a little bit of Mexico City into New England.
There's going to be very little policing of these.
People are just running all directions. Yeah.
At least one of the participants also is unlikely to track. So yeah, there's going to be no way to verify.
When is this race?
We're not sure yet.
Okay, great.
Probably in January.
Love that. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Put me down as a maybe.
Yeah. Anybody who's interested, listeners, more than welcome. Just DM or post a comment. Happy to send the details when they become available. But yeah, so little training block sort of focused on that terrain, that sort of elevation profile, and in pretty bad shape. That's one thing I've noticed from this week in running.
Yeah.
So
same.
gotta build it back.
I gotta build it back too. I'm thinking I a little follow up on my announcement that I was running where was I going to run the Richmond Marathon, and then my announcement that I wasn't running the Richmond Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'd like to follow up that exciting saga with my announcement that maybe I'll run the LA Marathon in March.
All right.
So I might have to start training.
Well, we just added California to the list of states where you've considered running marathons.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty impressive. I'm checking another one off, another box. I think it's 3 months and 5 days from now. So
nice.
I really got to start training.
So you got to start. Well, I was thinking a lot about that, and we'll talk about it maybe on another episode, but I sort of have, I think, my two main goals sort of locked for next year, but I'm excited to plan like a lot of sort of just secondary, shorter type stuff too, and maybe some things a little bit sooner to look forward to, because the first big one's unlikely to happen until probably June. So I gotta fit some other, besides the Krampus Classic, I probably should do have like another sort of like fun day out to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. That's too far apart. I'm registered and qualified. Well, not registered, but qualified for next year's New York Marathon.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So, but that's like 11 months from now. So definitely need to do something before then. But LA in March sounds fun.
That sounds amazing, and great time of year to be in LA too. I mean, it's nice there pretty much most of the year, but I feel like that's better than the summer.
One of my biggest like problems is just like with early races and stuff is just like getting myself to wake up as early as I need to, and in a normal rhythm. And so that's why I figure if I go 3 hours west, there we go.
There you go.
I'm already on race time without even having to try. So that seems like it might help me. The night before Providence, I don't think I slept very well, and people generally don't. But I didn't. But sleeping well would be nice.
Definitely some nerves, and you're thinking, it's I mean, it sounds like a great strategy. I think that gives you a little buffer, and I wouldn't be surprised if you set a PR. A little bit of training to do before then, but
oh yeah, it's totally. I mean, whatever my PR would be, it seems very achievable for just about anybody, really. So yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised either. And then maybe get one better one in the books before New York, because New York is so funny. You have to get there at like 4 a.m, and then you don't start running until like noon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, depending on what wave you're in, but you have to and to get there, like you have to take the Staten Island ferry, and then you sit in your corral all day. It's just it's kind of ridiculous, but very excited for it because it's such an exciting event. The energy is so crazy at the New York Marathon.
I mean, I'm sure you're just going to be so psyched day of, and just sort of like, even if it's a little bit of waiting, like you're probably, I don't know. I guess I don't know, but
we'll see. I'll try to be in a lot better shape by then, and just make it as easy on myself as possible.
Well, it's sort of a good segue into a mailbag, if you don't mind.
I was just gonna say, yeah, it's overflowing as usual.
This was a bit of a request,
Okay.
a mailbag request, and this listener, hearkening back to earlier episodes, probably season 1, when we talked about the idea of maybe heading west, a little bit west for both of us, not to the Cascade Marathon, but to the Adirondacks to run a big sort of trail route, perhaps the Great Range Traverse, and maybe even roping popular runner Jim Pergolesi along for the endeavor. But the request was all about like an interest in sort of getting you out on the trails and seeing sort of what that experience might be like as a road runner.
I've noticed, that's the running world. Our listeners and others alike have an interest in me getting off the roads and onto the trails. And as I've indicated in the past, if this means I could buy a new pair of shoes, I'm open to the concept.
Well, you can definitely buy a new pair of shoes. It's like a special guest on another unnamed podcast, podcast competitor, I suppose, or peer, let's say.
Okay.
A special guest was talking about. We're gonna have to edit this part a little bit, I think, because I just completely forgot what I was gonna say.
Maybe, but people like the verisimilitude that these moments bring to the podcast, so we might have to leave it in.
Now I'm not even thinking about the thing. I'm just worrying about this part now. Yeah, but so what were we talking about? It was in relation to
me trail running.
You trail running. Oh yeah. So this guest was talking about races and sort of a showdown with having moved from the East Coast out west, had like a showdown at this one race, 50K, came down to the last mile, like I think it was an 18-second difference. And this cross country runner sort of like edged him out just at the end. He was talking about how like the running out there is just so different, and I guess this is a good sort of trashing on other terrain out west segment, but but it like basically made some comment about like how going into races and these cross country guys and gals and road runners show up, and they're all interested in thinking about maybe getting into running. Yeah, and just sort of said it like very like plainly, and he was like, I'm joking, but basically just talking about how like the very long-winded and almost forgotten joke was this guy was basically like, there like all the other stuff is not
running.
Like,
yeah,
it's not running. Yeah,
what the New York Marathon is not running.
no. If you ever want to get into running, Great Range 2024 with popular runner and maybe some other special guests.
I'm open to it. Like I said, I'll take a look at the shoes. I'll head down to REI, maybe try something on.
Definitely try them on. Talk to the shoe people. They tend to be knowledgeable.
I get attached to my shoes though, and I guess I should recycle some of these. And
I've seen people using trail running shoes as streetwear too. They sort of double as urban streetwear.
I wear a pair of running shoes pretty frequently as fashion, and it's a pair of shoes I seldom run in. So I run in them sometimes, but my Tracksmith Elliott runners, which I think are super cool looking. But but I feel like attached to the shoes I ran my first marathon in. I feel like a sentimental attachment. That's probably just because I'm a bit of a hoarder, though.
I threw away my first like big like pair of trail running shoes that kind of got me back into running and got me into this type of running, and eventually needed to make room for some new shoes. But
yeah, we can if maybe we could take pictures of them and put them on the podcast Instagram, so then we don't feel like we need to keep the shoes around.
Just post the shoes we're about to throw away.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll have like a little shoe museum.
Yeah, shoe museum. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that was the mailbag.
I had one mailbag too, actually. And I know this one actually I'm looking at, but listener Dan wrote in.
Oh,
with a little follow up to his last mailbag question about his young apprentice running in Crocs.
yes.
And he said before even hearing our advice in the last episode, he decided just to let the apprentice figure it out on their own. And on his own, the young apprentice ended up discovering a pair of white Nikes. Yeah, that listener Dan sent a picture of. So maybe we'll share that picture on the Instagram account if anyone's interested.
With permission, would love to do that.
Might even do it without permission. Yeah.
Yeah, white shoes are cool. Good streetwear, and I also really like. I've got sort of my current Solomon Ultra Glide 2s are very light in color, and they show the dirt. They look cool. It's like
I like white running shoes.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell.
The ones I wear as streetwear, the Elliott runners, are white and dirty, and they let the world know I've been running.
You've been running. You're not. This is not only a fashion statement.
And they actually, I don't run in them a lot, but they do run. They are the shoes that I ran on a hotel treadmill 3 days last week. Probably a total of, I don't know, 14 miles. So
yeah.
They can run. Yeah.
I see some of these, like, I don't know, Solomons and other like sort of high end trail shoes being worn on the streets of New York, and I'm like, you're ruining the lugs, but they're like they're clearly all like clean, and they're just for fashion. So I guess in that case, if it feels right, just do it.
If you around New York, people walk a lot, so they need the arch support.
Yeah,
so they need a legitimate pair of shoes.
Go for it. All right. Well, I think there was. Let's see. I do have a song of the week, but probably not for another week or two.
All right, let's do it next week. I was gonna say we are probably running short on time over here because it was a nice, long, healthy length interview.
It was. So yeah, well, we can wrap it up here.
Let's do it. All right. Well, until next time.
Onward.
Special guest.
I wear many hats.
This is the Power Mode.